Welcome to the first episode of Vitika Imports Q&A. We've got a couple of questions to get through in this first episode, so strap in, get your beverage, get your snacks, whatever you need, and we'll get right into it. Awesome. So the first question that we received was, what is the state of the current Japanese Pokemon market? So this one is a bit tricky because there isn't one exact right answer. We have a few kind of strong opinions and, kind of guesstimates as to what's going on, but there is no one person that has the right answer. What we kind of best put together is that it's very similarly to the 25th anniversary set that, came out in 2021. The few boxes that were released or sets that were released before that were very expensive and their values dramatically rose very quickly. And the reason for that is because there's a huge number of people coming back into the space. So whether that's, brand new collectors or just people playing the game, or, kind of a combination of all of the above, we're just seeing a lot more interest, a lot more people reaching out saying, hey, where can I get, Japanese boxes from? And quite honestly, that has been a major driving factor into the pricing of Japanese boxes right now, specifically booster boxes. And what we're finding is that the suppliers in Japan, right? So the TCG supply market doesn't work the same with regards to the English TCG and Japan. When it comes to English, everything is done very officially through, officially deemed suppliers that are, kind of chosen by the Pokemon Company. And the whole of Africa only has one supplier right now, that being Solar Pop. Now, Solar Pop doesn't have enough currently, Pokemon stock, and they haven't for quite a while. Apparently, that is going to be changing pretty soon, especially with the acquisition that the Pokemon Company recently did. I don't remember exactly the name of the factory, but they recently acquired a massive card printing factory, and they're hoping that that's going to equal out, the kind of supply and demand issues that we've been having. On the Japanese side, they kind of have their own, like, not culture, but they have their own way of doing things. Now, officially, the Japanese Pokemon Company really only want to keep their stock within Japan. They are printing only for Japan, and that is pretty much it, right? They have not allowed anyone officially to, be supplying overseas in any capacity. So it's effectively what is called gray importing and exporting. And while it's not exactly like super illegal, it's not great, naturally. But, nonetheless, especially with the pure demand or supply and demand issues that we're having with the English side of things, at least having access to, various other languages like Japanese, Chinese, and Korean, even Thai, to a certain extent, is at least better than nothing. So what's happening is that they are able to, the Japanese suppliers now are able to effectively name their price. Now, we don't know exactly who is kind of doing the price fixing. There are a couple ideas floating around of quite a big Japanese syndicate. I'm sure you can guess who that might be referring to. That might be kind of controlling things, behind the scenes, but that still remains to be kind of known and probably would never be known. But it is unfortunately what it is seeming like. And what happens is when the prices rise, typically means that there isn't enough, stock, and that's obviously across Japanese and English. But what equally happens is when the prices go down, that is typically when there are, major reprints. Now, recently we haven't had any major reprints, from the Japanese side of things, yet, which means that the pricing is driving up quite dramatically, and we don't see we don't see it calming down, especially with the release of, sets like Inferno X, Mega Dream that, came out a couple of sets before that, even the dual Mega Evolution sets, and, with the kind of corresponding Ascending Heroes set that released in English, which is the basically the same set as Mega Dream, or the same set of cards. The Japanese suppliers are just not budging right now with their pricing. They are like basically not interested in hearing about the fact that their pricing is way too high right now, and there's nothing that can really be done. So there's two options, right? The first one is that you buy at the high price and hope that the price, kind of just keeps going up, especially for the collectors who are wanting to keep things sealed. Or you wait and you don't buy anything right now, and with the hopes that things will come down. Now, naturally, with any bubble, it will burst at some point, even within the English side of things. And in my opinion, I would rather be on the side of not owning everything at very high pricing. And now, when the price kind of drops again, you are, sitting with stock that's very expensive. Now, with long-term investing, again, this is not financial advice, but with regards to long-term investing, in my opinion, I don't foresee the Pokemon TCG like majorly crashing in any way. I naturally think there are always ups and downs, as any market will have, kind of bullish trends, bearish trends. There will always be those, but a complete crash I just don't see happening anytime soon. So even if you were to buy right now at high pricing, I don't think it would be, especially in the long term, like a bad thing, or at least a bad investment. And yeah, so currently, especially with the 30th anniversary looming, within this year, and it most likely is going to be released around September, October, we just don't know if the pricing is going to come down until then. As mentioned earlier, when the 25th anniversary came, or at least was announced, everything started skyrocketing, and nothing came down until after the 25th anniversary was released. And even then, like, things were just absolutely pumping. So we foresee something similar to that happening this year. We know for certain that the 30th anniversary is going to be bigger than ever. There's going to be a multitude of products that is absolutely going to, take the market by storm. And we just feel like we don't really see, the prices coming down anytime soon. Now, I will say that Abyss Eye, which is going to be releasing on the 22nd of May, is definitely at a really good price point, even though it is one of the newest sets. There's going to be a lot of Pokemon that are like super popular, especially revolving, Dark, Ghost, Psychic, those types of Pokemon. Knowing that the headliner is Mega Darkrai, we can expect those Pokemon. So Pokemon like Umbreon, Gengar, probably some sort of like a Gardevoir, maybe, other various evolutions and things like that as well. So knowing these things, I don't foresee it calming down anytime soon, in terms of the Japanese collecting market right now. All right, getting into the second question for episode 1. We have a question submitted here by Jay Kabaz, a very good long-time standing community member of Vitika. So thank you for your question, Jay. His question is it the right time to be buying 151 and V-Star singles? My answer is unequivocally yes. Right now, I definitely would recommend buying any V-Star Universe singles you can find, any 151 singles you can find right now. My personal opinion is especially things like the Master Balls, even the Pokeballs, trying to complete Master Sets and things like that is definitely going to be probably the only thing I would recommend right now. I just don't think that buying any sealed is going to be a good thing, at least what the prices are looking at right now for the foreseeable future. It's most probably just going to keep going up now that the print run obviously has ended for both Japanese and English. And I actually saw a crazy stat the other day. 1 ETB of 151 English, obviously, is equivalent in terms of price, is equivalent to the combination of all of the SARs or SIRs, the chase SRs in 151. So that means you have, kind of a no-brainer as to what you should be doing. If you're going to be buying an ETB where you're not guaranteed anything, obviously, as opposed to just going straight for, the hits, again, you would need to find them, at retail pricing, which obviously isn't always easy, but you have a better chance of doing that than finding, an ETB, cracking that ETB and then hoping for the best. A lot of people know this about me, but I tend to not crack anything sealed. I've been burned too many times in the past with my collecting habits. And that just, yeah, so I just do not crack anything sealed. I prefer to just put, any additional, funds that I have straight into buying the singles and trying to complete sets. And that is definitely what I recommend right now. I think V-Star Universe, people have been saying this for ages now, but I genuinely think V-Star Universe, as well as obviously the English Crown Zenith, is incredibly undervalued right now. I think, obviously aside from the gold, the gold chasers like the Arceus or Arceus, the Giratina and things like that, I think the Galarian Gallery and things like that are really undervalued in my opinion. So if you can pick those up, I would absolutely do that right now. All right, getting into question number 3 and the final question for today's episode. And we have a question submitted by Siraj Ramlal, also one of our valued community members. And his question is, what's the best way to source vintage Pokemon cards in today's markets? So I think they're, giving it some thought, I think there are like 3 decent ways, right? The first way is kind of the most obvious. You can go direct to pretty much any Japanese supplier and ask them to source you a card, right? Now, there's a couple of things with that. One of them being they don't exactly work 100% to the T with regards to market pricing. So you're typically always going to be paying 10 to 20, even sometimes 30 or 40% over and above market prices for any card. Now, when it comes to vintage, they always work a bit more on, the condition of the card rather than just the pure market value. And that is when you can become a bit more negotiable with them. But typically, that is, it's going to be the most reliable way to source vintage Japanese cards, but it's the most expensive one. Now, something people also don't really either know or remember is that when importing something from Japan, especially when importing to South Africa, you have to pay customs tax as well as shipping on top of that. Now, if you order, a huge amount, you could probably get the shipping reduced entirely or, discounted heavily. But the custom tax, you can't do anything with that. It's something that you always pay, which is typically between 15 and 25%. You kind of, depending on a few things. Now, that is, in my opinion, for the South African market, not the best thing to do. Again, it guarantees the card, but once it's shipped, anything is possible. We've seen so many parcels being damaged, via airmail or, DHL or whatever it is. And, if you're ordering something that's that high value and it gets damaged, there's just nothing that can be done. So, with there being no guarantee and also being super expensive, it's just, in my opinion, not what's recommended. The second option is to go to local shows or local trade days and things like that. You'd be very surprised what people actually have. And I'll be honest in saying that is how I actually built up my little Japanese collection, when I was thinking about starting Vitika imports. That was how I started. I had a little English binder and I was going around trading people for any Japanese cards they had. And I built up quite a decent collection just by doing trades with people, for mostly things that are more playable than anything else. So I did play at one point the TCG, but I kind of stopped. So, traded out everything that I had that was playable for things that was, that were more collectible, and went quite well. So I think that would be your next best bet, is to go to things like collecticons, even comic cons. Even though they are very big, you can still find people that are willing to trade some things and buy from various vendors and things like that. 100% correct, recommend the collecticons though. Like zero entry, you have everybody there that is already going to be doing vending specifically for Pokemon, and you could come across people who are willing to trade for different things as well. So yeah, I know I mentioned there were three ways, but I think I kind of condensed two ways into one with the first option. But yeah, that is pretty much the only real ways to do it right now. Well, I guess the third way, could be reaching out to various community groups that might have, people in it. And you can just say, hey guys, I'm looking for, these cards or any vintage Japanese cards. If anybody would let me know if they have any for sale. Especially in South Africa, we have a very, very good, tight-knit community who are constantly vetting people to make sure that there are no scammers. Scamming is becoming increasingly an issue, to worry about. And we really have amazing admins in all of the groups right now that are keeping a tight, or close eye on things. So yeah, big shout out to those guys. And yeah, you're welcome to reach out to me via DM or comment, and I can try and put you into touch with people who, might at least have some things that you're looking for, or at least in the right direction. But you can never go wrong with going to any of your local gaming stores as well. They might not have Japanese cards specifically, but at least they'll know, who to point you towards. And I mean, they're very in tune with the people that are in their community or are coming around to their stores, quite often. So they'll know who to point you towards. And ultimately, again, you could just message us, and we can put you in touch with the right people, or at least with the right people in your area and things like that. Ultimately, we always wanting to grow the community. So yeah, feel free to reach out.